Well, that's precisely what we're talking about now. I did tell you that earlier. We're talking about security in Niger State. In the last couple of months, Niger State has been in the news, starting from at least, let's look at this year alone. In January this year, it was said that about up to 200 people had lost their lives in less than 2 weeks in Niger State. A few days ago, it was reported that 3 policemen were killed and 7 vigilantes also lost their lives in trying to neutralize bandits who have now been labeled terrorists coming into Niger State. Last week, or was it 2 weeks ago now, we also had an attack in a village close to Shiroro. Shiroro is where we have a major dam, which also contributes to the hydropower which we have in the country. So there have been questions as to what exactly is the situation in Niger State. I do remember senators, talking about this and saying Niger State is just an hour away from the Federal Capital Territory. So there are many reasons to be concerned about what is happening in Niger State. This morning we're joined by the Secretary to the State Government of the state, Mr. Ahmed Ibrahim Matani. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Well, the security situation in your state has been a bit worrisome, or perhaps more than a bit worrisome. Can you tell us what has led to the upsurge in the activities of criminals which have been reported in Niger State?
Well, thank you. Thank you again once for giving me this opportunity. Niger State, like you rightly say, has become in the news, has been in the news, on the issue of security. Of course, if you look at the size of the state, Niger State is strategically located. It is in the central, part of Nigeria. It has the largest landmass, 10% of Nigeria's landmass. We are about 80,000 square kilometers, and we are bordered by also, security-prone, states. We are bordered by Zamfara, Kebbi, part of Sokoto, and then Kaduna. And largely, these are, the epicenters of banditry and other insurgency activities. So because of this centrality, and of course, like you rightly said, we are very close to Abuja, so movements, and urbanization has actually, caught up with the state, especially in the border communities like Suleja, Tafa, and some of those towns that are on the corridor, that allow movement of people in and out of Abuja. But in the last, few years, we have seen a gradual upsurge of, this banditry, rates of kidnapping, and of course, to some extent, the gradual presence, of some insurgents in the name of Boko Haram and ISWAPs on some, isolated communities in Shiroro local government. Now, you can ask, why is this so? Of course, certainly because of, weak response on the part of security, agencies, over time, and taking certain things for granted. The way it is that we do not have, permanent camps, for bandits or terrorists, as you prefer to call them. But they come in because of the closeness of the states where they are with Niger. So they come in, attack, communities, and then go back. But in the last few weeks, we have seen them coming in, more often than they usually, did, in the past. Of course, looking out, for cattle. Whatever cattle is, within, the state, they want to pursue it and be able to rustle it. And in the course of cattle rustling, on the way, any community they come in contact with, they go and abduct people, and they ensure that, while they rustling cattle, they also carry human beings, for ransom. Unfortunately for us, because again, many of our communities are in rural, they are abducted on their farms. We have seen cases where bandits will come and also, put up a ransom demand, for communities to pay before they could access their farms. We have seen situations where even when communities succeeded in producing, their crops, they again, stop them from harvesting until they pay certain, ransom. But largely, all of this, Niger State is is made up of about 25 local governments. Out of these 25 local governments, we have major incidences in Munya, Rafi, Shiroro, Mariga, and a little part of Rijau, Magama, and then, Mashegu local governments. Now, we also have...
That's how many local governments affected?
About 6 local governments. The 7th one, which is far off, on the border, is Borgu local government. Borgu is a different, component that also, has experienced, some of these incidences. Basically because Borgu share border with Republic of Benin. And then it has this large estate of forest reserve. So, of course, they have found, this reserve as a good sanctuary, for their activities. But we are lucky, I think the security agencies in the last few weeks have been able to dislodge them. But, one of the things that we have discovered is that unless we are very consistent, well coordinated, in dealing with these, responses, they keep coming back. And that's the situation. We are also lucky that at least, internally, and I must give credence, to His Excellency, the Governor of Niger State, Alhaji Abubakar Sani Bello, for, of course, being proactive in dealing with these matters. Over time, he has related with security agencies to ensure that they are motivated, to be able to carry out what they're supposed to carry. But we know the weak areas, and this will be part of discussion, I believe, later on.
Well, Niger State, I think that the security issue in Niger State, as you said, it gradually came in, and then, it reached a crescendo of sorts with the kidnapping of children. We saw the kidnapping in Kagara, the one that happened in the boys' school,
The Islamia school.
Exactly. So, and those were very worrying incidents for a lot of Nigerians, all over the country. But it didn't just happen overnight. Did Niger also think, because when the security issues were happening, first in the northeast, maybe, and then it spread to the northwest, I'm sure that at that point, you might have thought that it was only a matter of time,
Absolutely.
as a result of sharing borders with these states. It was only a matter of time before it crept into Niger State. Were there any preventive measures put in place at that point to try to see what could be done to, before this terrorists would decide that they could make the forests in Niger State a home for themselves? Yes,
as a government, you're always on daily basis do security analysis, the vulnerability analysis in terms of what are the likely scenarios, because if it affected, Zamfara, it affected Kebbi, certainly it would affect Niger. Of course, security agencies, will put up, some strategic actions. I will tell you that, we have had, joint security operations, with support of federal government, Operation Sharon Daji and all of this, all these were platforms, to respond and to ensure that, you strategically, situate the state, and put it on the path of safety and, peace. But however, knowing these bandits, they increase in number, they are well coordinated, they're very mobile, they have very, strong communication system.
They do?
Yeah, they do. They have very strong communication system. I will tell you...
When you say strong communication system, are you talking about technological devices or just the crude intelligence system?
We will realize that, apart from having, these satellite phones that they can easily communicate, with their groups, one of the things people don't know, every forest that you see in this major, general area is being manned by a particular, bandit commander with a chain of, command system, just like you find in the military and the police. So you hear, oh, this is a bandit commander in charge of a particular location, this is a bandit commander in charge of a particular location, and then this is the way it goes. So they are well structured. Like I said, they have high level of communication. If anything happens to another group, they can easily communicate, and call for enforcement.
Do we have an idea of what the motive of this bandits groups are? Is it to take over the space, or is it just for just itinerant economic, I'm looking for the word now, bandits?
Yes. I will tell you, very interesting, scenario. I had visited one of the command areas. We have met with so-called, bandit commanders when we were, thinking about dialogue, as an option in a non-kinetic approach, to dealing with the security situation. And we wanted to really extract what is the mission? Why are they taking up arms, against government, against communities? Why would they just, as human beings, just kill people, unnecessarily? Of course, the demand are neither here nor there, because they kept saying that, they've been neglected for a very long time. A lot of them are pastoralists, who have lost, their cattle and they have nothing else to do. They do not have Western education. They do not have even the Islamic education. They have limited access to, schools. They have limited access, to healthcare and many other things like this. And but then we have always, emphasized that that does not guarantee, a whole entity, a whole population taking up arms, to really say this is the only way that they can get attention of government. Of course, every Nigerian has one limitation or the other. Whether you're a private sector man, whether you are in whatever level, nobody can have adequate. Nobody can have sufficient as far as the economy is concerned. So, and that is one of the reasons, because the governor now created some kind of safety measures by one of the flagship projects that we have is at Bobby Grazing Reserve. Bobby Grazing Reserve is about 36,000 hectares where pastoralists can come. They have access to pasture, they have access to water. If you want to do legitimate, herding of cattle, then of course this is a space, for you. So there will be no excuse to say that because you are not giving attention. So this is an opportunity. You can go about, getting some means of livelihood through a legitimate, pastoralism, for your cattle, for your family, so that you can become sedentary. You don't even need to be moving, back and forth.
So that was government's response to some of the issues which they raised. But were they able to say precisely, in any clear terms, what their motive is? You weren't able to get anything
We did not get anything tangible outside of this, because banditry, historically has been associated with cattle rustling. One particular clan will go into another, rustle the cow and all of that. But that has gone beyond what we know as the normal, banditry. It has culminated into an act of terrorism. You go into community, you burn the houses, you cut away and loot whatever you can find, as an asset in that community. You kill people. And that is beyond the normal, the old banditry that we know. So
the government of Niger State, is it now also recognizing them as terrorists?
No, of course. Once that's the national nomenclature for them, the Niger State government has no option but to also treat them the same way. And that is why, we have called for a more coordinated action. We need to be decisive about, how, these matters are dealt with. Because it becomes a national security issue beyond just Niger State. What we have found is that initially when we looked at Northeast as just a Northeast issue, but today the whole of that zone, the Northwest, North Central, is bedeviled by banditry and kidnapping. Today, of course, everyone who's going to Niger State will think, oh, I'm going into a highly risky environment. And that has really sent wrong signals. It affected, businesses. It has even affected, the structure of our education system, because our students who ordinarily should be going for boarding schools, we have to move them into day. We need to have to build, resilience in terms of security around our communities in primary school and secondary school that you have rightly mentioned. We had two bitter experiences with kidnapping of students. The first was the Government Science College, Kagara, where students were kidnapped alongside their teachers. Then the second was even Islamia school. Ordinarily, nobody thought that they could go to that extent of attacking and kidnapping Islamia children. Some of them at the age of 3 years, and they were in their hands for more than 3-4 months. So this is the challenge that we have had. But as a government, we are not inundated, we are not complacent, and we have seen gradual again successes that we are making with regard to curbing these incidences.
I know my colleague has a question for you, but I want to quickly pose this to you. I mean, Niger State has, as you've said, 10% of the landmass of the entire country, which is huge grounds. People say that one of the reasons why this act of criminality is thriving in the state is because you have huge spaces ungoverned. Yeah. There have been calls for an increase in the number of policemen and security agents in general in Niger State. But state police is something that a lot of governors have also clamored for. Interestingly, it is not in this constitutional amendment. Is this something that worries the Niger State government?
It does worry us because over time we have found out that the conventional security architecture cannot actually respond adequately to the protection of these communities. In fact, what we have discovered is that the community policing system should be the first line of response because again, to give you an analogy of what is happening in Niger, you hear that community will tell you that, oh, we have cited these bandits in particular location, but it will take you 2-3 hours before you can even mobilize, to respond. In 2 hours, they have finished whatever they want to do, and off they go. So in reality, we need to build a community policing system that should be the first response before any reinforcement could come, from the conventional security. That's what it is. We have found over time the inadequacy in the number of personnel of the conventional security. We have also found inadequacy in terms of even equipment. And again, one of the things I've always emphasized about is that we need to also begin to deploy, technology in dealing, with these matters.
Let me throw this to my colleague, Kayode.
Well, thank you very much, Mark. But 2 quick issues I'd like to raise. First, in your bid to hold out an olive branch to the bandits, I wonder, what did you find out? Are these people from within your society or outside, perhaps within the immediate Niger society or the larger, maybe North Central or Northwest society, or even from the Northeast? What did you find out? Because it's important to know who these people are. Do they have families? Do they have, links and all that? So what exactly did you find out?
Well, we have discovered so many things. One, we have discovered that banditry has become an enterprise. They're making a lot of economic gains, from it. You would imagine somebody who was an ordinary pastoralist, maybe in a month, through this pastoralism, he'll be able to just maybe raise about 200,000. But today, they could just abduct 5-10 individuals and they make millions. 2, we have also discovered that in the course of, collecting ransom, they use a lot of this money to buy more weapons, and that the weapons they buy seem to reinforce and strengthen their capability and their capacity, to continue, doing what they are ordinarily are doing now. 3, we have also discovered that Zamfara has become, the major area where 90% of the bandits live. and they do their activities, they do so many things. Because the question would be, every cattle that you see rustled from Niger moves into, Zamfara, and they're in thousands. One local government alone, when we estimated last year, has lost over 18,000, heads of cattle. And then in the last few weeks, we have lost over 10 to 20,000 heads of cattle. And all of these cattle are moved to one, direction and one destination. So it will mean that, yes, there is a lot of economic gains, that goes, with these, banditry activities. And we have also discovered that, indeed, because it has become an economic enterprise, it will be very difficult, for you to just, cut it off. Unless you are decisive.
Just to be clear, SSG, if they live in Zamfara State, pardon me, if 90% of them, as you said, live in Zamfara, does that mean they are from Zamfara State or what?
Yeah, we have also, I was going to that. We have found now today, because it has become a big enterprise, it's not only the local, bandits that you find in Zamfara, parts of Kaduna, parts of Niger, Sokoto, that are actually into these activities. We have discovered that they hire mercenaries from even outside the country. They bring them from all across, the other countries. They come into some of these states. They carry out these activities, and they are paid off, as mercenaries. And they go back. And anytime they are required, to carry out these activities, they are also invited, for some of payments, after the job is done.
Right. So the elephant in the room, SSG, I'd like to find out, I mean, you've talked about the governor being very proactive, but we also know that the governor has been involved with party leadership over the past few weeks, and that will definitely mean him having to spend a lot of time in the nation's capital, Abuja, embroiled in trying to organize the party. How has that impacted on the affairs of the state, specifically security back home? Because the governor, as we say, is the chief security officer of the state.
Well, I think his absence that you refer to, I wouldn't call it absence, but this additional engagement, it does not remove anything, from what he has always done, as a governor. It has not reduced anything. I, as the Secretary to State Government, coordinate security. I've always been doing that, even when he's around. The Deputy Governor is there, and then we have the whole security architecture in Niger State that we carry on, these activities. He still provides, leadership in this. I will tell you that even when he's away, he still link up, with the relevant security agencies, to deal with this matter on a daily basis. You'll be shocked, and I'm sure you have seen some of the clips. He had visited many of these very high-risk, security areas, and of course, he went there on motorbikes. He tried to motivate, some of the security agencies and all of that. And he has not stopped doing that. Yes.
Let me quickly ask you two quick questions about the vigilante who lost their lives. I do not know if there's going to be any special compensation. I know that the police force usually has some general group life insurance, which they do for their personnel. But we've also seen that some states have also supported in that regard. But for the vigilante, which we've seen the governor inaugurate and try to motivate. Would there be any special considerations for those who have lost their lives in the course of trying to secure the state?
Yes. One of the things that the governor has done is to really provide an enabling law, for the vigilantes to operate. So he approached the House of Assembly, and the House of Assembly enacted this law, what they call the vigilante, corps, where he can systematically recruit, the vigilantes through a lawful process. Mm-hmm. So there is a recruitment process. There is a kind of compensation, process. Those who are vigilantes are being paid, on a monthly basis to motivate them. They are also provided, logistics, support.
When they lose their lives, what happens?
When you lose your life, you also get some form of compensation. the governor,
their families, that is.
The governor has pledged that the vigilante and the conventional security, whoever loses his life, there is, some, palliative support, to his family before they could even process any other, means of, support, as it were.
Then quickly, I know that Niger State is asking for special consideration.
Yeah.
How is that going with the federal government?
Special consideration for, because we are, if you look at Niger, we host many national assets. And one of the things that you mentioned is we have 3 power hydro producing, dams, the Jeba, Kayenji, Shororo, and we're having the 4th one, which is in Gero. We're strategically located, like I said, anywhere you're moving, whether south to where, north to south, east to you, come through Niger. There was a time when we had difficulty with some of the roads and all of this. So Niger State, by its own strategic location, and like you rightly said, we are just a few minutes, to Abuja. If anything happens, in Niger, before you know it, it might infiltrate, into the seat of, the government, the federal government. So I think special consideration should be given. We are not saying we should be treated differently, but what we are saying is pay attention in terms of providing security within the corridor, of the state, because we are bordered by also, the federal capital.
Is that being well received?
Of course, at a time you've heard, Mr. President, in fact, gave a directive to security agencies to go and ensure they do whatever it is, to ensure that there is, stable, consistent security, in the state. And this has been going on. They should also make sure that, these national assets now are well protected. And this is ongoing.
Well, we hope that, that these security issues, will be resolved as soon as possible, and that, more and more people will feel safe and secure in Niger State. We have to thank you for coming on this morning. Ahmed Ibrahim Matane is the Secretary to the State Government of Niger. Thank you very much for coming on this morning.
Thank you very much.
We have a few feedback from you, which we'll quickly take. Dakwa Banjo says, the security challenges of Niger State is directly related to large swathes of ungoverned areas. I really don't know how much we can stretch our security agencies to fight this insurgency. Dialogue and justice is key.
This one from Professor Enakina says, security agencies must work in harmony to achieve any sustainable successes against criminals and terrorists. They must be deployed to the vulnerable areas to help in the policing and curtailing flagrant attacks being perpetrated by terrorists and criminals in Niger State.
Well, Law Alpha C2 says, I think federal government should expunge the power sector from the exclusive list and subsequently declare a state of emergency on the sector, just like it happened in the telecom sector. I think that's on already, especially the moving it in the constitution review. So, yeah, engage with legislators and the state assemblies to get this done.
Festus Akimboyewa says, PMB asked the famous question, where's the power? I think it's our turn to ask him where the power is. We can't achieve good development without electricity. What happened to the electricity agreement with Siemens? Time to declare emergency in the power sector. So a lot of talk around declaring a state of emergency in the power sector. Thank you so much for your feedback, and thank you for watching this morning. Well,
it's been a pleasure having you on this ride with us. I'm Kayode Okikelu.
Prepare to recruit the next set of leaders by getting your permanent voter card. Do it today. I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful day.